Well, good evening, everyone. It's Sunday night, and I'd like to welcome you to week 2 of our class. And I'll start off by thanking everybody for your participation in week 1. As I said in the written announcement, people have got some opinions already on ethics, what it's all about. Noticed a couple of words kept popping up, like greed and bad decisions, things of that nature. And as we go forward, as I think I tried to explain in my earlier openings, you'll probably see that ethics is more of a relative matter in many cases. It's not a matter of absolutes. And one of the things I think you're going to find as we go forward is that this is as much a course in decision-making methods and decision-making criteria as it is in, say, what I referred to earlier as being right or wrong. Frequently we have to remember that there are a lot of factors that play into those decisions. And this week we're going to get a real start at looking at them. So if you go into the material for this week, what we're going to start off with is what is called stakeholder analysis. And it might help for all of us to understand what is a stakeholder, what do you define as a stakeholder? And I'm sure many of you have heard that term before. But to me, a stakeholder is anyone who is materially affected by what we do. And in a business sense, it's anybody who's affected by the operation of our business. Now that could be our customers, that could be our suppliers, that could be the community at large, that's clearly our employees, government, the environment itself is a stakeholder, our families are a stakeholder, and that's the kind of analysis I want you to keep in mind as you go through and read the material about stakeholders. I think I may have mentioned it before. I had a good consulting client for many years who, when the first time I met him at his company of about 75 employees, told me that he felt he was responsible for about 300 people. And knowing that he only had 75 employees, I kind of looked at him quizzically and said, "Can you please explain?" And he said, "Sure. I may have 75 employees, but they have families. And the families of my employees are dependent on what happens here." So clearly, my client George understood the concept of stakeholders. And that's very important as we go through the methods of analysis. So really look through the material in Chapter 2 as it proceeds through the idea of stakeholders. And you'll notice very early in the chapter it talks clearly about the difference between a stakeholder approach versus a stockholder approach. Okay, stockholders, investors, owners, that's more of a pure financial approach. Stakeholder approach is much more expansive and takes in many, many more issues. The second part of the week's material moves into the idea of issues management. And unless you've been living under a rock and haven't heard about it, but look at things like the scandals at Penn State University. There's an issue. Issues management was going on there right to this very minute as to how that whole case has been handled. I think you'll find as you go through the rest of Chapter 2, the second half of Chapter 2, where it starts talking about issues management, think about some of the news articles you've read and some of the news stories you've listened to and seen about the whole Penn State affair and see if you can't match them up to the whole idea of issues management. Next, I've included also in our material this week, as you'll see, a short video from the Markula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University out in California in Silicon Valley. And this is just another perspective on what is business ethics, what's it all about. So those are some real important materials that you need to look at. Now, operationally, this week we start in with the discussion board as a graded exercise. So you'll notice that in the course material I'm going to include some best practices for discussion boards. What I really need everyone to do is to try to get in and participate in the board as early as you can. Now, this is important because, as I said, this is a read and discuss week. If you're not getting in early, then other people aren't getting the benefit of your wisdom. And by the end of the week, I may, if you wait till next Sunday night, let's just say I'll probably be the only one that's reading it. And that's not the point of doing the discussion board. The point is for us to be able to learn from each other, learn with each other, question each other, comment on each other's work, and that's the essence. Remember, we are trying to simulate what we would be doing if we were sitting in the room together discussing these issues. And in ethics, I can't emphasize enough how important discussion is. So please make sure you participate. It's not an option. The board is worth 100 points, and participation is a big chunk of that. All right? And just remember to be substantive, be clear, be serious about what work you put in there. No just saying, oh, I agree, or great post. Doesn't do it. Okay? That's what we need to remember. But if there are any questions on this, by the way, please ask me. So those are the main issues that we work with. Now, the first question for the discussion board, by the way, is in there, and it starts off with stakeholder approach. I will probably ask a second question mid-week. I will start another thread and let you know that I am starting that thread. So what I'm trying to do is let us get going with the first half of the material, which is essentially on stakeholders, and then as we move into issues management, or perhaps an issue arises out of your discussion, when that question comes up, we're going to add that. So you're going to have to pay attention to things as we go along. Don't wait till the end of the week, because again, like I said, if you do, you're only going to be jamming yourself up with work, and you're not going to get the full benefit of working with everybody else. I hope that the material is clear. I want to thank everybody for their work the first week. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, as several of you have. So either use the discussion board unit that I've put up there for you to ask general questions, or if you wish, just make sure to get a hold of me. I'm generally in my office on campus most of the day. So if you send an email, that's probably the best way to approach me. If you do want to call, that's fine too. Just know that I teach most of my on-campus classes in the morning. It probably wouldn't be good to call me then, because I'm just not going to be around. And if I haven't mentioned it, or if you didn't read it in my bio, I'm also one of the tennis coaches at school. And guess what? Season starts soon, so preseason training starts this week. So I'm not in my office a lot in the afternoon too. So I guess I just contradicted everything I said about being there all the time. But please contact me. I will get back to you as fast as I can. So the main approach again this week is to approach the stakeholders versus stockholders, and then to move on to issues management. And as we go forward, keep in mind my earlier comment, but this is a course just as much in the process and the background of decision making as anything else. Thanks again, and looking forward to this week. Thank you.